if farming is in you, you can't get it out of you. It's so nice to be working with crops and with the seasons and with Mother Nature and taking care of it.
The homey feel and just being out in nature. It really is about the ability to create something, grow something.
I love the cycle of life. You do it not just yearly, you do it long term in stewardship of the land.
And the freedom to breathe that fresh air. And when I'm cutting hay or baling hay, the smell of that fresh product.
The other thing is I quite like the people that I've met, the people in the community, my neighbors, and I quite enjoy having the chance to work with them and see what they're doing, and I like being a part of a small community.
And the dealing with people that's my favorite part about farming.
I can wear so many hats. That's my love. I'm a horticulturalist, I'm a mechanic, I'm an accountant, I do kind of my own banking, I pretty much do all the marketing.
Having the ability to grow food for our community, our country, and the world, I think that's just an amazing, worthwhile goal to have.
What I love is we're feeding the world.
Well, hello. Welcome to Ag Day in Canada. So good to have you joining us. Thanks for being here. It's a day today, Ag Day in Canada, where we get to celebrate you, the ranchers and farmers who produce the food that is so good. It's good for our country and good for the rest of the world. And we get to hang out here together, which is great. I'm Dave Kelly. I've met some of you at various ag events, but for those that I haven't, I'm a host, MC, talking guy. And I get to talk with you here today, which is great. The morning is going to be pretty simple and pretty straightforward. First of all, hope you had fun at your tables. You saw some of you speaking just now in that amazing video. We're going to hear more from you and more from the things that are interesting to you and of concern to you. And then what we're going to do is we're going to talk a bit about it. We're going to have a few conversations. We're going to have one panel talking about succession and legacy. We're going to have another panel talking about mental health. And we're going to have our special friend, Sheldon Kennedy, come by and talk to us a little bit about that. And we're also going to hear from the president's chair, see what Curts Stange has to say about what he sees from the top at ATB as part of a big group of people who are working for all of us here. But first, I wanted to invite a very special friend to our show, Julie Van Rosendaal. Julie is a cook, a cookbook author, a writer, and an eater. She's a food columnist. She's on CBC Radio. She's going to be on CBC Radio in about 10 minutes. So we got to make sure we get her through here on time. Contributing editor at the Globe and Mail, says even a Pulse enthusiast. And we're so glad she could come here with us today. She's an active social media influencer. Hi, Julie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm so glad to see you.
Canada.
Isn't it great?
Yeah,
now, I know. Now, you've been a huge supporter of food and local producers your entire life. Why is that a deal for you?
Well, because I love to eat. And it all began. I do it really well. I'm one of the best eaters I know. I've been doing it my whole life. I am in stretchy pants right now. Always. But it all begins with people in the ag industry, right? Like you said, the farmers, the ranchers, the producers, the growers, the people who create those building blocks of our everyday meals. And food, it's such a foundation of our day-to-day lives. It's something everyone can relate to. And it's so much more than just fuel. It's something that we use to comfort each other, to nurture each other, to celebrate, to socialize, even if it's on Zoom. It's a way that we show support for one another and sort of a language that everyone can understand on their own personal level. So I'm getting goosebumpy just talking about it. I feel very passionately about food.
And I know for you and I have done a lot of work on television, and you were great at pointing out that most people think, well, food comes from a store. That's where food comes from. But obviously that's not the case.
Well, and food literacy is so important. It's so easy for Canadians to only see the marketing, to be disconnected from the real source of their food by just experiencing it in the grocery aisle, right? I think it's vital that we all have a better understanding of how our food system works, how our food is grown, how it's raised, how it's produced, distributed, where it comes from, how the weather and the terroir and the seasons affect it, and how supporting local farmers and ranchers and all who work to support our ag industry ultimately benefits us in so many ways.
And I know you got to go in a second because you're off to do CBC as part of your life.
Yes.
But before we let you go, we have somewhere between 100 and 200 farmers and ranchers and folks in the industry watching right now. What would you have to say to them?
They see my vest. I thank you. Thank you for working so hard and doing what you do to put food on our tables. I have so much respect for people who work in the ag industry. I'm very proud of what we do in Canada, and I'll keep working to help share your stories and teach people what to do with all the things that grow here. And, you know, food trends come and go, but there's been a deeper shift, I think, in our priorities and our value system, especially this past year, that has involved paying more attention to the people in our communities. And that includes our farmers and our growers and our producers who are feeding us. So thank you. Keep on doing what you do. I will keep on eating as much as I can.
Well, you're so generous that way, Julie. I don't know how you do it. Okay, you have work to do. Thanks so much for joining us, Julie.
Thanks for having me, and happy Ag Day, Canada, everyone.
Yay. Thank you so much. And I know you're saying, wow, Julie Van Rosendahl, Sheldon Kennedy's coming up. That's all fine and good. But is there a contest? Do I get to win anything? Well, you know what? You've seen the videos of Benny and Johnny and the rest of Team Cooey, that great curling team and Briar winners right here in Alberta, and also Graham Sherman from Toolshed. They've been duking it out when it comes to their skillet videos, but they're also supplying us with an amazing prize that's going to go out to one of you. Rob, tell us a bit about that, would you?
Well, Dave, today's winner is going to receive a Harvest Party Cooler filled with local craft beer, 48 beers from Toolshed Brewing, and some snacks. Plus, we'll sweep out your barn, Quonset, or parlor sparkling clean, courtesy of Team Cooey, unless they're at the Olympics representing Canada. Hurry hard.
I just want to say that was my brother Rob's read. Incredible voice on that guy, right? Hurry hard. So that's right. Team Cooey, they're going to come out to wherever you are, and they're going to deliver 48 beers. Now, they said they're going to bring their brooms and clean up your sheds or your barn. I think you better focus on the beer. I'm not saying anything about that. We have a couple of, I thought before we get down the line too far, before Curtis talks to us, let's meet a couple of folks who are out there working every day and just see how things are going. This is David Bishop and Doug Mutton. David is joining us from east of Claresholm. Doug is joining us from near Lethbridge. Welcome, David. Welcome, Doug. Good to have you both with us.
Good to be here.
Yep, good to be here.
David, I'll pick on you first. Tell us a bit about the work you do in the ag world and how it's going.
Yeah, well, our farm is in southern Alberta, in the Barrens area, like you were saying. It's been a good year in agriculture overall this year because of the weather conditions gave us pretty good crops and the commodity prices are pretty good. I'm also past chair of Alberta Barley. I sit on the board of Canadian Malt Barley Technical Center. I sit on advisory committee for CN Rail and a lot of other numerous committees in agriculture. It's something that when I got a little older in life, as you can tell by my gray hair, that I've thought it's time to put something back in agriculture. I've gotten a lot out of it over the years I've been doing this, and I thought it was time to put something back in there. So I've been very active in the advocacy and policy side of agriculture in the last few years.
Well, it's just great to talk to you and to hear your thoughts and your words. Doug, tell us a bit about your life.
Well, my son and I, we operate Benchmark Angus on the Milk River Ridge, and we are a true conception to plate operation. We breed the cattle, we sell bulls, we buy the offspring back, we fatten them, and we process and we deliver a fair bit of product into primarily Calgary and into the Banff area, very high-end deal. And this pandemic thing kind of almost shook us out of our boots. But when the big packers all shut down, we were like, we couldn't keep up. The demand was just amazing. So we've learned a lot through all this pandemic thing and the safety requirements and all the rest of it. But it's been a learning experience, but it's been very, very good for our business.
Well, I'm glad for both of you for joining us. I want to thank you both for doing that, just to be here and give us keep our feet, as we say, safely in the earth. Thanks both of you for coming by. I also thought maybe we should check in with the head of ATB who's putting this on for us. Curtis, I keep talking about you like you're this great omnipotent being, and I know you're just omnipotent. That's all it is. But it's good to have you with us, Curtis. Thanks for joining us. Could you give us just a sense from where you sit and the folks you're talking to, just a bit of an economic outlook as it relates to ag, but also this is coming from a guy who was born, raised, and educated right here in the prairies, Curtis.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Great to be with everyone, and thanks for all the participants, clients, and guests, and to the guest speakers for putting this Canada Ag Day together. Absolutely remarkable. So thanks for that. And you're right, Dave. Yeah, born and raised on the prairies, city kid. Born in Winnipeg, raised in Winnipeg and Regina, but always had a love for agriculture. I don't know where it came from. My uncle was a farmer. I had my godfather was a big grain farmer outside of Winnipeg. And I just always had a love for agriculture. So much so I studied in university at the U of S agriculture, and then went on and had a big decision, worked on a big grain farm south of Swift Current through my summers, and had that decision at that point in time when the farmer I was working for offered me part of the farm as he was getting ready to retire, didn't have kids that he wanted to pass the farm down to, and made that decision to go into banking, probably an influence from my dad at that time, who was a civil engineer and, wasn't sure if a city kid knew anything about farming. And so encouraged me to get into banking. And that was 35 years ago, 1986, almost 35 years ago that I decided to get into banking. So I really enjoy it. I love the banking world. And I think the banking world, how I look at it through my eyes over those 35 years, a large part has been providing support and service to agriculture clients, which I've stayed connected to all along. I've sort of grown a little bit of a niche in the business and agriculture area, and really enjoy connecting with the many of the farmers and ranchers that are on the call today. But I will say, being a people business, that's what makes it. When you have people like Terry Andreo on the community investment side and Jonathan Neutens, who leads this ag business for us, plus hundreds of other dedicated ATBers focusing on agriculture every day, it makes my job pretty darn easy. And so I want to give a big shout out to the ATBers that every single day are passionately committed to supporting all of our clients, and thankfully we hold a pretty darn good market share in agriculture in Alberta, which is something we're very, very proud of. But the team wanted me to talk about not about my background, but about economics overall, as you said. And I want to talk about economics, and I'll get to agriculture specifically, but economics both from the head and from the heart. I think looking at it, to your point, the market volatility has been nothing short of just enormous, with a global pandemic, with the knock-on impact of a price war between the Russians and the Middle East, and the collapse in the energy price over last year, and the knock-on impacts of the economy, plus all the geopolitical environment, the social unrest. I mean, my goodness, when you're in business and you're dealing with the complexities of commodities and derivatives and foreign exchange, like many of our clients and guests are today, this is incredibly complex. And I think, looking at this from the head, which we do, you see the fact that we're going to see a contraction in the economy from 2020 of about 7%. Could be a little bit greater than 7% shrinkage in our economy through 2020. We will see a rebound into 2021, this calendar year that we're in, but it's going to be in the second half. And so, we're going to see continued contraction and continued flatness in the economy. In the second half of the year, this calendar year, we should see the economy begin to grow, and it should expand between 3 and 4%, not taking back what we shrank in 2020. So it's going to take us a few years, likely till 2023, until we get back to the size of a gross domestic product that we saw pre-COVID, or even getting back to, the 2014 days before the initial collapse in energy prices that we all remember so well. The balance is as well. I think, the OPEC cartel has been somewhat positive in helping balance the supply and the demand on the energy side, which, is helping some of the energy companies reinvest. There's going to be more capital spending in 2021, but it's also, based on a pretty low bar. So the capital spending isn't going to be anywhere near where we need it to be or where it will be in the coming years. So the head is an interesting place to start with, but more and more, I like to look from the heart. And the reason I look from the heart is simply because, and no more is it more evident in farmers and ranchers in Alberta, which is the resiliency, the optimism, the entrepreneurial spirit, this ever ongoing sense of it's going to get better. And if we just focus here and we focus here and we do this and we do this and we pivot our business and reduce our costs here, we find different suppliers, we find different export markets, and the resiliency shines through. And I think that's been happening, since long before we became a province in 1905. And so we do have optimism. We have optimism that the vaccine will help, even though it's been a little bit slow in being distributed. There will be vaccines out. We are going to kick this pandemic in the butt. The second half of the year will look better. We will get to herd immunity, and markets will open up again, and we will begin to travel. We're going to get together again face to face. We're going to go see the Oilers and the Flames games. We're going to host you in the box as we have done in the past years, and we really, really look forward to that. On the positive side in the economy, agriculture was one of those bright spots, as Doug and Dave talked about over this past year. On the back of a few bad years, I will say, from floods and some droughts that we've had in different parts of the province, but the ag sector has been remarkably resilient, as has our housing market, and definitely green shoots in technology and innovation, something that the ag sector knows an awful lot about. I think it really doesn't get the praise that it deserves, the ag sector, in terms of its advancements in innovation and technology, and how you've been using big data for many, many times and pivoting. And a bit of a shout out and a shout out to Chris Perry and the Perry family. Chris, I hope you've had some knee-deep days at Castle Mountain. I'm sorry we haven't been able to get out there together, but a little shout out to the Perry family, fourth generation farmers near Chin, Alberta, owned and operated about a 5,000 acre farm since 1909, largely potato growers for brands like we're all familiar with, Frito-Lay and McCain Foods, leaders in data-driven and sustainable agriculture. 2012, they started Grow Energy Circle with the support of ATB, produces 4,000 megawatts of renewable electricity per year from manure and organic waste, enough to power about 1,000 homes. And this past year, the Perrys were approached to generate an opportunity to upgrade their biogas plant. And even though it was a little bit odd and a little bit outside of the box for us, we were able to come together and get a term sheet and a commitment for the Perry farm to continue to expand that part of their business. And again, that's one of dozens of examples I could provide about the innovation and entrepreneurial spirit that we have right across the province. And we need ag more than ever. I think everybody knows that people are changing their eating patterns. They're looking for the different types of foods that Julie talked about in her section. The pandemic has deepened the appreciation for buying local. Technology innovation, as I mentioned, remains one of the hallmarks of the Alberta producers. And so the near term looks pretty good. As Dave mentioned, crop prices are pretty good, relatively strong at the moment. The rail service was pretty good in 2020, less competition from non-agriculture commodities. And despite some of the Chinese bans, we're still finding markets for our product. And then again, I think the final thing is that $815 million investment in the irrigation system is a really good positive. So while we've got lots of, clouds above us right now with this pandemic and some of the challenges, the optimism is very bright based on all of you. And I want to give a big shout out and a thank you to the customers and to the prospects that have joined us on Canada Ag Day. A shout out to the ATB team and the customers that have choices. And we know that there's a lot of competitors out there that provide products and services that support you as ag producers and ranchers in the province. But we love having you as customers, and we thank you for all that you do. You are an incredibly important part. And we look at the energy sector and the agriculture sector as the backbone of this Alberta economy. So thank you very much for what you do. I really appreciate it. And I can't wait to get back and visiting you on your local ranches and farms in the near future. Take care, everybody.
Thank you so much, Curtis. That's a very hopeful and positive message, which is good to hear. Speaking of hopeful and positive, at the top of the show, you saw videos, and those are from Scott Samoleski. I'm going to bring Scott on. I'll read all about you, Scott, and then we can chat a bit about the videos that Scott put together. Thanks for being here, Scott. Let me tell you, I'm going to talk a bit about you, Scott, and then you can tell me what I got right and what I got wrong, and it'll work that way just as easy. Scott runs a little company that helps a lot of people figure out what they want to do and where they want to go. He says he helps organizations understand and appreciate audiences. He's a bit marketing, a bit business, mostly really curious. You're the customer strategy lead for Veracausa and Street Smart Strategic Planning. Thanks for being on the show. How are you, Scott?
My pleasure. Feeling great. Great morning. A little bit of snow on my driveway I'm going to have to take care of a little bit later, but a real pleasure to be here, and happy Canada Ag Day to all.
Tell me, we had a bit of your video that you put together. This was part of sort of a big survey of ag folks. Why don't you set it up? How did that happen? What was that about?
Sure. I mean, part of that, my whole job is to try to include customers in the planning processes for organizations. And when this concept of ATB celebrating this day was first being talked about, we said, why don't we involve participants? Why don't we involve the audience in planning that day? And so that was really the beginning of it, to say, what kinds of things are on your mind? What kinds of things keep you up at night? What are you worried about? So instead of guessing about relevant content for audiences, find out what's important to them, find out what's on their mind, and then use that to kind of shape the conversations that follow afterwards. So that was really the catalyst for starting the project for us. Yeah.
How many conversations did you end up having?
So we had 28 people participate in the project, and basically, and some of those people are probably watching this morning. So we would get people on the line for a Zoom call just like this for 2 hours, Dave, and I would go through a series of questions. There was no more than between 3 and 4 people on the call, and just getting their thoughts and opinions. I like to really concentrate on the values of the audiences that I'm dealing with. I think that when organizations really understand who they're dealing with, and again, the things that inspire them, the things that motivate them, what success looks like to them, I think they are able to better serve that community and just do a better job with them overall. So that's what we really concentrated on in those conversations. And 2 hours is a long time. We can cover a lot of territory. And believe me, the little snippets of a video that I brought with me today are just a tiny little sample of all of the content that we collected. So happy to showcase that, but certainly those conversations ran very deep.
Tell me, set up the first one. We're going to look at some values conversations. Set that up for us, and then we'll play it.
Sure. And really the question that drove the answers that you're about to view were, what do you love about what you do? And we heard some of the clips in your intro to our program this morning, some of those answers. But now we put a little package together that kind of explores the rest of people's answers to that. What do you love about what you do? So you can go ahead and run that.
I love the fact that I have the feeling of ownership and that I can control what happens on a fairly large piece of ground, being able to control your own destiny.
Being able to make my own schedule, like, in the morning, you spent half an hour, having breakfast with the kids on the kitchen table and eat with them and then go to work and be your own boss.
But I get to be the president of the company, right? I'm totally accountable for everything, whether succeed or fail, I own it. And I work for myself, which is where the fun is at.
I love running my business, making decisions for myself. I guess my favorite part of farming is the tradition, the family part of it, because it goes back 3 generations, and like now I have a son, so it's a 4th generation, especially when we've owned the land for as long as we have. Because you can say, this is your great grandpa that put this fence line in. So those things I really cherish, and being able to work with my dad and my brother is something that I really enjoy too.
We have a family farm, so that's my favorite part. Is I have kids and I have nephews, and everybody kind of is here. So it's one of those things that you can do as a family.
The first thing I think of when I think of farming is family. Regardless of how long they've been farming with their family, there's still a really unique pride that comes from working with your family.
Spend time with your family, build those relationships, and also that connection to family history. We both come from farming families. Being able to kind of continue that what our families have done it's important to us.
My wife is very, very involved on the farm. She's our home, like our storage crew person, and she does all the finances, or at least the majority of it. She spends almost her entire time on the farm, and she's an awesome mom and an awesome wife.
You know, what gets you out of bed is this ongoing challenge. You wake up and you know what you got to do, and you try beat you compete against yourself, right? So it's the challenge.
Every year is different. There's so many opportunities to make decisions, management decisions, and see what happens and try to learn from that. I really enjoy the challenge of trying to figure out what the best management practices are.
You can sure hear the pride and see the pride, can't you, Scott?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that is one thing I think that separates, and I do this kind of work, David, in a bunch of different categories all over North America. Ag always has a soft spot for me just because of the passion and the pride that producers bring to the table, and also that legacy piece. You know, being involved in a business that has gone back generations in your family, I think that is unique. That makes agriculture different. That makes producers different. It makes their businesses different, and their perspective on their business is different as well. So, you know, the spirit I think that people bring is amazing.
This next video setup is legacy. Tell us a bit about that before we hit play.
Sure. Yeah, and the question for this one was, what does success mean to you? And there's a little sample we put together here. It's a short video, but this was the dominant theme we heard in response to this question, Dave.
All right.
Well, success for me really is securing and growing my parents' legacy, because they were the ones who started the ranch. It's also about providing a legacy for my kids in the future.
When I can pass this from the fourth generation to fully onto the fifth generation, whether that's my son or my daughter or both.
Right now, success in my mind is getting my kids on the farm and building a future for them.
Just carrying on the legacy of the farm. My kids will be sixth generation. I'm fifth. Carry on that legacy. That's full success to me. We've renovated a barn that my grandfather built in 1918, rebuilt in 24. Tried to make it original, very difficult, and just allowing that legacy to carry on.
We've been farming since 1907 here, our family has. I'd like to see it carry on, you know, as long as it can. So that to me is success.
Building on that family legacy. And ideally, right, if our little girl decides that she wants to grow up and keep farming, well then for us that's success, right? Kind of continuing that legacy.
The time frame is much longer than you would expect in other industries, isn't it, Scott?
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually just looking up this stat the other day. I think the average tenure for people in a salaried job in Canada is about 4.5 years. And in fact, it's actually much lower for people that are 25 to 35 years old. And so that is one thing that definitely makes the category different. I mean, we're talking about careers that are 30, 40, 50 years long. And so, you know, you look at your business differently, because that's commitment with a capital C, as we like to say it, right? You don't dabble in farming for a couple of years, do something different, come back. You tend to be in it for the long term.
And speaking of long term, they talked there, and I've spoken to you much about youth and young people. Set up that video for us.
Sure. And the question that we put on the table for this video was, you know, what do you think are the keys to success for successful agriculture moving forward in the province of Alberta? And people really glommed on to the fact that, you know, we've got to get young people excited and interested in the space. They're the future of agriculture, and we've got to make sure we cultivate their passion just like ours. So go ahead and roll this one.
It'd be hard to find skilled laborers now, because let's face it, there's not many farm kids coming out to There's not many farm kids left in general. So to find somebody that has the knowledge to be able to come work on a farm is going to be hard to find.
I need to get my kids interested. How to instill the passion in my kids so that they have an interest in taking over.
Educating youth and encouraging them to stay on farms. So you really need to create a growth structure within your farm.
And getting more youth involved is a really big key to our success.
would like to see ATB have a little bit more stuff focused primarily on the young guys getting started.
The average age of the farmer is getting higher and higher. We need younger guys in this industry. Otherwise, there's no agriculture left.
But I think there's an opportunity there for ATB to look at trying to develop a program that brings young farmers back into the fold and into the business. If you get a producer starting with you, it's a whole lot easier to keep a customer than it is to go out and get a new customer.
Supporting young farmers and helping them start and stay in the industry, I think that would be huge for them, and get kids, even small children, saving money. Like put out an incentive for them to save money. You know, like my Dutch colleagues here will know that in Holland you have savings week, like Spaarweek, and you go to the bank and you deposit your money, and then the bank will give you a toy in return. I feel like it needs to start at a way younger age.
Isn't that something? So in just a bit, Scott, we're going to have, I'm just looking over this, Scott from UFA, a Kurt from 4-H, Stuart from Olds, and John from ATB talking about that specific thing, succession and legacy, but it's clearly on people's minds.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're an organization that's servicing the agricultural space, you just have to recognize that there's more than just the person that maybe signs the check at the other end, right? Involve other people in the business, invite them to meetings, provide tools, initiatives, support to recognize that these people are important. And of course, you know, everyone wants them to get involved and interested in the space, and everyone has a responsibility and a role to play in doing that.
Well, we're going to talk about it, and we are a little later on. Sheldon Kennedy is going to be joining us along with Amy Monea, who is a psychologist, to help us understand this next video. Why don't you set that one up for us?
Sure. And you know, we talked about some of the great things with agriculture and what people love about doing it, but it's not all roses all the time. And so the flip side of that question is, you know, what are some of the dominant challenges that you face in ag right now? So go ahead and play this.
I put it at a 7-8. I have become more and more concerned about any agricultural staff's health, whether it be financial, physical, mental.
And it's all up to you, and now you're responsible for your family and your employees. And the man that works for me has 5 children of his own that I always seem to think about too.
I definitely noticed that when we had our little girl in this last year, my husband's stress level from that, adding on top of the fact that we had some not some great production years, you know, kind of coupling those things together, his stress factor went out the window. And
the stresses of being a producer now are probably, I don't know if they're higher, but the market is so volatile now. You can make a decision to grow a crop, or, you know, you have your cattle on feed, and then the market falls apart, and in the course of a few days you can lose all your profit. And being a young farmer, like, we have quite a bit of debt to get started, and when that stuff turns around on you like that, it's extremely hard on your stress levels.
I think the mental health side of it is going to be a bigger problem. Like in my area, we've had 6 bad years in a row, basically. You still have all your same payments to make. You got to find that money.
And the dollars keep on getting bigger and bigger. With the size of the money that's involved, it doesn't matter how many hours a farmer works. If he had a bad year, you can't work yourself out of it. It's a big strain mentally on a lot of people.
Beef ranchers, for the most part, some of the most private, independent, don't tell you their business individuals going. The younger generation is now starting to talk and willing to discuss things that people my father's generation never would have never admitted to. I would say your beef cattle industry, the average age isn't in your late 50s. It's probably closer to 70. And again, it goes to that generation that doesn't talk.
Now, Scott, do you think if you would have done this same survey, I don't know, 50 years ago, would mental health have come up in the same way?
I don't think so. You know, it's hard to say, yeah. but I can tell you that it does. It is one of those issues that you hear more and more about as time goes on, and we talked a little bit before about legacy and pride, and I think, you know, related to that is responsibility, and stress and pressure. So when you've got 5 generations of farm behind you, and now it's on your shoulders to carry on that tradition, that adds a lot more pressure than the average person in just a normal career, right? And that, plus the fact that there's so many variables in agriculture that are outside of your control, the markets, the weather, all of those things. You can do everything right as a producer and still end up in a tough situation, right? And so I think those are the challenges, and that can weigh on people, and just the pressure of wanting to carry on that legacy adds to that, I think.
Tell me a bit about, so obviously we only got to see a sliver of all the work, all of that. Just give us an overarching impression, and then where do you see this going forward?
Sure. I mean, like I said, this just touches on some of the topics that we focused on with some of our folks. We had a healthy amount of conversation that talked about the future. You know, if you woke up 10 years from today, what do you think the agricultural environment is going to look like? So I think good organizations are not only, you know, looking at solving customer problems today, but they're looking to the future to make sure that they can gear towards those things as well. The old Gretzky quote that you have to look where the puck is going in order to be successful and effective. And so that also dominated a large part of our conversation. Just what needs to happen tomorrow to make sure that we can continue being successful. So I imagine we'll probably see some of that content in the future as well, Dave.
Well, we're so grateful for the work. And before I let you go, I'm curious in your sense when it comes to mental health and stress and legacy, how important is it that you get a flat of beer and Team Cooey coming to clean your Kwanzaa? Do you think that'll help much? What's your sense of that?
I think it's really going to let the pressure out. I think the PSIs will definitely come down. It sounds like a pretty good solution to me.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Scott.
All right,
Scott Samoleski, what a good egg, and thanks to him very much for letting us use all those videos to get a sense of what you're about. So, on that, I'm going to introduce you to 4 people who are going to fix everything. So no pressure, Scott, Curts, Stuart, and John. But if the next conversation doesn't fix this entire situation around legacy, well, then I don't know what we're going to do. The 4 people I'm going to bring on now are here to help us give some insight into succession, legacy, some of the concerns you brought up, to say, okay, what do we do with this? So I'll introduce them all, and then we'll chat. Scott Bolton, I'm going to bring up first. He's the president and CEO of UFA. And this is the thing, Scott actually had that cow pose behind him for this entire thing, which is so good of you, Scott. Now, I know that you've been with UFA for a long time, but also I want to read this out. UFA's Rural Communities Foundation is one of the things you sit on the board for. And can you just give me 10 seconds? What is that? Because I think that kind of helps our conversation. What is the RCF about?
Well, it's about giving back to our rural communities. It's a foundation that we've invested in over the years, and it's an endowment that we earn interest on and dividends on, and those funds are used to fund worthwhile projects in our rural communities. We just finished giving about $100,000 away over the summer to 4 worthy recipients, and we're excited to do more in the future. It's a great initiative.
I'm going to bring Kurt Kinnear in as well. Curts, the CEO of 4-H. Thanks for being here, Kurt. And I know you grew up on a mixed farm in Olds. Your 2 brothers are continuing the farming game, and now you're running a 4-H. First of all, what are your 2 brothers? What are the 2 farms they're working on?
One's very much a mixed farm, chickens, actually heritage chickens and all of that, and Clydesdales and workhorses, all sorts of mix. And then my other one's more of a traditional mixed farm with grain and cattle, grain and beef.
And I know this morning you just summited that mountain behind you there. Tell us a bit about how that went.
I summited this one. I didn't make it to that one. That was enough for me. I lost almost all my hair doing it.
It's apparently got both you and Scott. All right. Let's bring up Stuart now, shall we? Stuart's with us here from Olds College, the president of Olds College. Now, you've been there since 2009, but you've been in ag your whole life, and Olds is over 100 years old. It's quite a legacy to be in a college like that. That must feel great to work in that world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I grew up in the Three Hills area, and so I had the opportunity to come to Olds a fair bit with my dad for different events, and actually I practiced with the Olds College Rodeo Club in the 90s. So it's pretty cool to be now president of such a historical institution that's had such a great impact on agriculture in this province.
Let's bring our final panelist in, John Neutens. Thank you for being with us here, John from ATB. You joined in 2019 VP Ag, where he leads their strategy, commercial efforts in ag, agribusiness, and agri-food. But you're no stranger to the ag world yourself. Tell us a bit about your background, Jonathan.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Great to be here, obviously, to talk with everyone. But yeah, I mean, I just joined ATB here within the last couple of years as my first foray, if you will, into the banking world, but not my first foray into ag. So I spent my whole career in agriculture. I grew up in an ag retail business, and talk about intergenerational, the whole family transfer and so on as it related to that was something we had to go through. But yeah, I spent my career in agriculture in mostly the pesticide and seed industry, but a little bit of ag tech and ag retail. So long career in ag and really, really enjoyed it. And it's great to be here at ATB to have a different way, if you would, to look at ag and to support customers.
Well, we're going to use the four of you to talk a little bit about legacy, succession, and we saw the video, some of the concerns that folks have. First of all, Scott, wait, maybe I should just have a sip of coffee here. I'm just going to have a delicious.
Well done. I'll take the cheap shots about my hairline if you can do that.
If I drink like this a lot, then we've got something. A lot of people are concerned about bringing young people up and finding young people, but you wanted to point out from where you sit, there is a tremendous opportunity as opposed to other times in ag. This is a great time for getting involved. Talk a bit about that.
Yeah, very much so. Maybe the best way to put it is ag is sexy at the moment. It's strategic for this province, for this country, more than it ever has been. And that's the pandemic. It's driven, so many trends or accelerated them. And one is we were reminded of the foundational, fundamental importance of ag. So I think there's going to be an explosion, quite literally, of opportunity for our younger generation. It's around where ag is going: agri-food, ag tech, sustainable farming practices, innovation like data analytics, which was referred to earlier in our primary farming and ranching operations. I mean, the breadth and expansion vertically, horizontally of this industry, the opportunity it has is significant. And frankly, the issue we're going to face and are facing right now is a shortage of labor and people with the right skills to take advantage of this industry's opportunity that it's going to give to this province. And so, I just think we've got Stuart on the call here with the importance of organizations like Olds and Lakeland College, and training our younger generation to take advantage of the opportunity is so fundamentally important. So no, I'm really excited. I'm bullish on the future.
Tell me a little bit, Curt, from your perspective with 4-H. That's something that also people were drifting from, and you're managing to bring them back to. What is that about, and what is your perspective?
Yeah, you're right, Dave. 4-H has been on a slow decline over the years, but the truth is that's the same for most traditional youth programs. And thankfully I was a part of another program that was on a decline, and we ended up growing it to very large, doubling in its size. So I've been on this end before, but 4-H has a significant need in our community. And I genuinely believe that if we do the right things and bring in the right partners, we work with ATB, they do a financial confidence program, and we inject that expertise and respect the 100-year tradition, I think we can start to really turn that curve around.
Would you say parenting is all? I mean, you're not on the show for parenting advice, but if I'm a person who's trying to get my kids interested in something, are there things to do or things not to do that you go, yeah, I wouldn't go down that road?
Well, tradition is one of the blessings and one of the curses for a lot of organizations, old ones. What happens is people try to recreate the traditions they experienced. The problem is that they don't respect the fact that the tools have changed. So you want to create the same experience, but you're using different tools. So the way to bring around youth is often just changing the tools and letting them try in contained and safe environments, let them try new tools. But you want to uphold those traditions of hard work. And like 4-H, I heard the other Curts say head and heart, but you also got your hands and your health. But you want to uphold those traditions, but then you want to respect the fact that the tools have changed, and technology has played a big part in the changing of those tools.
You have a background in tech as well. How do you see that for someone out in the ag industry helping what they're doing?
It's a two-sided sword. I think it's one of the most valuable things to make the industry more interesting for young people, because tech is the way to make the jobs better, make the pay better, in some cases, not in all cases. So its injection is critical. But people need to always remember that if it's free in tech, you are the product. And people forget that all the time. So if it's a free product online, you are the product. So as a parent, you've got to really think about how you're going to allow your youth to use their time, and yourself to use your time on those free tools. Because once you realize that you're the product, you might want to minimize it and set some boundaries around it.
I know, Stuart, you weren't there at the beginning of Olds College, but it certainly has changed in the last 100 years. Tell us a bit about how things are from your perspective, and how they're looking for getting young people involved.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate Curt's point around respecting tradition and building on tradition, but also really engaging the tools that you have available to you. And I think that that's so true. And I think it's something that we are seeing at Olds College over the last number of years in particular, a focus around technology. And through the launch of our Smart Farm, we're really looking to how we can bring technology into our institution and really change our learning platform, you can say, to facilitate that evolution and transformation in some ways that's occurring within agriculture. And I think it builds on strength, because agriculture as a sector, I think, are very much early adopters of technology. It often gets frustrated, though, by a lack of connectivity or a lack of integration. And therein lies the opportunity for, an institution like ours, because we need to help our industry address some of those issues. And we need to train the next generation of talent so that they can understand how to integrate technology. And I think by doing that, we're really providing a tremendous attractant to our young people into agriculture. And I completely agree with Scott. There is an opportunity and a challenge, and it's based in, and we can see it within the data. The Canadian Agriculture Human Resource Council anticipates that by 2030, there's going to be nearly 130,000 jobs in agriculture that are unfilled, and a lot of those are high-tech, high-skilled jobs. So, and a lot of those, jobs can be filled by not only farm kids, but kids from the city as well. So there's a tremendous opportunity there. And as an institution, we're working very hard to bring technology into our campus, into our Smart Farm, so that our students can get exposed to that, can get excited about it, and then they can graduate and really help the industry and help the farms as they try to integrate and utilize that technology.
Do you see if someone's watching and thinks, okay, I have someone who's of a young person who's 15, 14, is there something that they can do to find out about what's possible or what's available through places like Olds?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think through organizations like Ag for Life, through organizations like 4-H and others. I mean, those are great examples of youth-based organizations that can really provide an experience for youth in agriculture. There's Ag in the Classrooms, and there's things that are happening within the K-12 system that our students can get, or our young people can get involved in to get exposed to agriculture. And again, we need to attract more than just the farm kid. We need to attract youth in general. And so getting involved in those kinds of programs can really open up our youth's eyes to the opportunities in agriculture. And then we're very open at Olds College to working with those organizations and having those youth exposed to what's happening on our farm, on our Smart Farm, and within our institution as well. So those partnerships, I think, are going to be really important going forward.
John, talk a bit about the financial world. I know for a lot of younger people, financing is a big question, and also even just financial literacy. So talk a bit about what ATB is doing in that world.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think, first of all, I'll start just by saying, this is a great conversation. I appreciate what everyone's contributed so far, because this topic, I mean, again, ATB was, built many, many years ago around the backbone of agriculture in this province. And, we tend to, I think a lot of us in ag have over the years can tend to forget about this being such a long-term game and about the transitional, about the idea of bringing young people into the business. And I think it's just such an important conversation. And for us, I mean, we obviously have a significant role to play in that. And in that, ATB was built to help Albertans and to be here in the province of Alberta and support the province of Alberta. And ag is such an important part of that. So what role do we play? Well, specifically, this is why we're having the conversation with UFA and with Olds College and with 4-H, and why we support, and specifically 4-H and Olds College around what they're doing, to bring young people into the business. Our role, we feel, is not just to do that, but also then to provide, what can we do around financing options, if you will, and farm succession planning and some others, quote unquote, products and services that are more directly related to what we can do to enhance and promote and so on, that aspect of transition and intergenerational transfer and so on. So, and we're sitting up and listening. I mean, the information that Scott Samoleski went through is the reason we wanted to have those conversations, was to listen and see what was on the minds and hear what we need to do better, if you will, to support that going forward. So, and we know it's not an easy game. Like the idea of those conversations for whether there's family involved or not to bring in the next generation into the farm. We want to be able to do that, but we also want to support, the younger generation that wants to get into agriculture, perhaps in a different way. So more directly, we're listening to try and to say, okay, what else can we do to support succession planning, to support, the financial transfer, if you will, of assets and of wealth and what have you, if you between generations. So we're going to go to hard work on that and do some more than we're doing now. But we do have products and services now to support that. And we really want to be a part of those conversations with our customers to help, if you will, in that process. But again, supporting ag in the future and bringing other people into the business of ag, there's more than just on farm. There's lots of opportunities that can take young people, if you will, through 4-H, through Olds College, and into a career, if you will, in agriculture, that can not just support the province in Alberta, but there's opportunities all over the world in agriculture, and it's going to be important for us here in Alberta and Canada.
Scott, back to you. Oh, wait a minute, just a sec. I got thirsty all of a sudden there. Just have a sip of delicious coffee. Wow. You seem like a hopeful, optimistic person. What is it on Ag Day? And I'm going to ask everybody this question as our final wrap up. But what brings you hope? What makes you optimistic about the future on Ag Day today?
I get back to the theme of youth and the opportunities for youth. And I've had the opportunity to participate in panel discussions at Olds College, for example. And when you talk to our younger generation coming up and the enthusiasm that they display, it can't help but get you excited, old guys like me. I mean, this industry is going to take off. I'm telling you, our day is here, and it's the youth that gets me excited. Gets me up in the morning.
That's great.
Yeah.
Great. For you, Kurt, as part of Ag Day, what gives you hope? What gives you optimism?
Well, I spent 14 years in senior leadership at the University of Calgary, and from that, I saw people graduate with all sorts of programs and not get jobs. And ag is the industry that has those opportunities, and organizations like Olds College are a perfect fit for that. People do get jobs and can get jobs coming out of these industries. So from a real fundamental standpoint, I think there's a lot of value there, but there's a lot of people that have left the ag industry and got into a lot of technical work and done a lot of things. I'm really excited about seeing what happens when they come back. When this industry can draw those experts back, what Alberta can do gets me really excited. And yeah.
So good. Stuart, what about you? What brings you hope and optimism?
Yeah, I definitely reinforce what's said. I think that agriculture is our next economic engine here in this province. And I think that's hope, because we are a global leader in agriculture and food production. And we're starting to see a lot of these highly skilled, high-tech folks pivoting back into agriculture, and fortunately we have the programming at Olds College to facilitate a lot of that. We also have programming that's being developed in agriculture technology and precision ag and technology integration that's really going to support those young people who want to move into agriculture as a career choice, whether they're from ag or not. So the pipeline, I think, is becoming fuller, I guess, in terms of, our youth actually looking to this industry as an area to focus on. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that we're going to have a tremendously talented workforce in the future to build on a critical economic engine for our province going forward.
So great. John, I'm going to bring you back at the end of the show to help us wrap things up. But for now, just give us a bit. What gives you hope and optimism?
Yeah, well said by all three. I think, again, I think the opportunity in agriculture is very significant. Canada is a huge player in the world, and Alberta is a huge part of that. And I think the opportunity going forward is agriculture is just going to boom. So, and we're almost coming full circle, if you will, in terms of, this pandemic shining a light on agriculture, to the importance of it and the added value opportunities we have. And within all of that, tech, all kinds of opportunity for our younger generation and ag going forward. So really excited about it.
Well, there's obviously massive questions and lots to think about, but I so appreciate the four of you for being part of this panel. Scott, Kurt, Stuart, and Jonathan, thanks so much for being here. And we'll keep these conversations going. Thanks, my friends.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have talked a little bit about bigger questions, and one of them is around mental health. And Scott Samoleski put together a video of some of those concerns. Before we get to Sheldon and Amy, let's have a look at that.
Especially mental health has been suffering in the last few years. I think debt loads on the farms in Alberta is rising. I think finance is always way heavy on relationships.
Like one of the main points is stress and managing stress. There is so much stress put on farmers.
4 years of just floods and just couldn't get the crop off, and it's a strain on mental health on a lot of people. You can see it, anxiety.
And we don't have the specialists, we don't have the ability necessarily at hospitals close by.
I'm 34 years old and I've had shingles twice, so it's extremely stressful. You can lose everything in the blink of an eye. So we're all rough and tumble people, it's supposed to be anyways, and sometimes it's not always like that.
Mental health is obviously a big concern. And so we thought we'd get some experts in to help us talk about that. Amy and Sheldon are going to join us now. Amy, Monea, and Sheldon Kennedy. Now, Amy, I have a question for you here because I'm just reading your bio. It says you're a therapist, registered social worker, and rancher, makes her home near Carstairs. I'm wondering, did you decide to become a therapist before you married a bull rider or after you married a bull rider? What made you decide I got to get into therapy at this point?
Oh my gosh, good question. And it's not a simple answer. So I grew up on a mixed farm and I decided I didn't think I liked people right out of high school. Like I thought I hated people. So I was going to be a researcher and research grasses like in the mountains.
Really?
I lasted one semester and I'm like, you know what? I actually do like people. Moved into social work and met my husband a number of years later. So he's a professional bullfighter. Hasn't always been helpful being a therapist. I don't know if you can imagine what it's like being married to a therapist. So I keep adding up his tab and
it's good, isn't it?
Yeah, payday's going to be real good.
Well, that's good because you're going to be in a panel with me and Sheldon Kennedy. So you're going to have a lot of work. Sheldon's joining us as well. Now, Sheldon, I could use up this entire conversation reading your bio.
Yeah, don't bother, Dave.
World Juniors, skated 3 teams, 8-year NHL career. And of course, most of us know you for not only as an athlete, but as a person who decided to say enough's enough and reported the abuse you suffered over a 5-year period, which led to, I mean, you haven't said this, but I kind of feel like it's led to a little bit of a direction for the rest of your life. That decision has influenced so much. You've gotten degrees from everybody, including Olds College, I guess we should bring up, Child Advocacy Center in Calgary, and the Respect Group. Tell us a bit about what the Respect Group's about, Sheldon.
Sure. Yeah, well, it's been an honor to be part of this conversation today and just learning. You know, I am a very newbie in the ag world as a farmer, and I love to learn. And Respect Group, we started, I guess we're going on 25 years. We started trying to educate people on the good people, focus on the 99% of good people, and give them the tools to be better around the issues of abuse, bullying, harassment, discrimination, and neglect. And we find that those issues carry a lot of fear. So how do we create a confidence around those issues and give people the basic knowledge to have the conversations that we need? And so we educate online, within the workplace, within sport, within school, and also parents. So we train over 2 million people a year across this country on these issues. Saskatchewan government is one of our clients. We train every employee within the Saskatchewan government, Saskatchewan and Alberta government. So that's a little bit about what we do. And then I like to go shovel grain. Yeah, well, can't afford hopper bottoms yet, so.
Before we set Amy loose on us, Sheldon, you sent in a couple of pictures. There's one, either one doesn't matter, we can show Rob, but there's pictures of Lachlan, and tell us a bit about the rookie farming work that you do now. Where are you? What are you doing?
Sure. Well, I'm very proud of my daughter, Ryan. I have a daughter, Ryan, who's 25, and she graduated from Olds College, and she works at quite a prominent facility just south of the city and manages all their horses in their ag program. So I'm very proud of her. But Lachlan is my son and our son. He's 2.5 years old. He absolutely loves the tractors and cruising around. But we farmed in Alberta. We farmed in the Bassano area and in Tilly. And prior to that, we built and operated 2 equestrian facilities just south of the city of Calgary. We sold them, and we now farm in Saskatchewan. We farm on Lake Diefenbaker in Saskatchewan in the Lucky Lake area. So that's where those pictures are last year. And I learned a lot. I'm actually, the tech side of stuff is I'm spending a lot of time online looking at which course to take, because I never think that you're too old to learn.
That's awesome. Amy, we heard people talking about mental health. What's your sense of the ag business as far as it relates to mental health? Is this something that is an issue that we do need to be aware of and thinking about?
1000%. I think I'm a little bit biased because I'm so passionate about this topic, but doing some research for today, the research around rural mental health in Canada is, we're just starting to get going. And what we're finding, what the people at the University of Guelph are finding is that as rural people, we have actually higher levels of stress, anxiety symptoms, all that kind of stuff compared to our rural neighbors, and also rural neighbors in other countries, and also our urban neighbors, which, the science is important, but the reality is this plays out in every community in this country, right? Mm. And so when we talk about high levels of stress, we're talking about neighbors, we're talking about spouses, we're talking about children, we're talking about in-laws, we're talking about people we care about, and we're talking about things like suicide, anxiety, farm accidents, even connected to higher levels of stress, loss of family members, addictions, stuff like that.
Is there, and I know Sheldon has thoughts on it, but how does somebody tell, okay, my stress is just part of life, and then, okay, this is a serious thing and I need to deal with it?
There's lots of different indicators we can look at. And when we look at ag life or rural life, there are stressors that kind of stack up on top of each other. And it's been mentioned before already. So many things outside of our control, right? You're standing at the window watching the hailstorm roll in, hoping that you bought enough insurance and that you're going to be okay. It's succession planning, all that kind of stuff. When they start to stack up, so when the stress doesn't go away after that intense calving season, when there's no downtime or there's no time to kind of recharge, also when it starts to affect relationships in our life. So when it starts to seep out of like where it should be directed, or when our thoughts or worries are always on that thing or that feeling, we can't shake the feeling, and it stays with us even after that event. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Sheldon, what's your take on, I mean, in my head anyway, there's a certain, like the NHL, there's a certain rugged Marlboro man sort of mentality around sport, especially men's sport. And is that something you would see similar in ag?
Well, absolutely. And, and I think mental health is about practice. Like, if I look at mental health, like, we learned the same power play from the time we were in Atom hockey or 8 and under hockey till the time we were in the NHL. Well, why do we practice it every day? Well, we practice it every day to get better at it. And I think, mental health, we never talk about it. We never look at it. We don't ever open that book until we are in a crisis. And the reality is that, the way I see it is that, we have to prepare and we have to plan and we have to practice on a daily basis. And it needs to be built into our daily calendar and our daily work schedule on how do we just, keep getting stronger and keep those, keep that strength, that emotional strength up so that we can handle looking out the window and seeing that hailstorm coming. I think that's what I see. But I also, the question that you asked earlier to Stuart around, would you have heard this conversation, 50 years ago if you asked that same survey? Well, I don't think you would get any, they think that mental health, that people would be in a loony bin. But I think at the end of the day, I mean, if I look at, there is hope. If I look at Sheldon Kennedy's history, I mean, Sheldon Kennedy's been in 8 treatment centers, 2 psych wards, mental health institutions. And I was the laughing stock of the NHL of being this troublemaking kid. And then, the Governor General calls me and says, "Hey, Sheldon, we would like you to receive the Order of Canada." So to me, what that represents is there is hope, but it takes a commitment, and it took me a commitment on a daily basis to keep practicing to get stronger. And I can tell you that mental health, there's no perfect way. I think at the end of the day, what I had to break it down to the lowest common denominator is that, if there is something that consumes me on a daily basis, when I can relate that to somebody else, when I can say that to somebody else, it loses all its power. And if I don't, and it stays in my head, it keeps gaining steam and it takes me out. And I have to break it down to that lowest common denominator and, and take the risk to tell somebody, right? Take the risk. And anyway, I don't know if that if that was what you were asking me, Dave, but
well, because I feel like, and Amy, I'm going to ask your thoughts on this too, but it feels to me like obviously the big one was you saying, I'm going to tell somebody about the abuse. So but we all have various levels of that. Is that what you're saying? That it doesn't matter what the thing is, if it's in your head, you need to say something.
Yeah. Like, what I learned, when I rollerbladed across the country, I thought, all of these issues are compartmentalized. Addiction is one compartment, abuse is another compartment, mental health is another compartment, mental illness, it's all, and, what I learned is that, stress is stress is stress, anxiety is anxiety is anxiety, depression is depression. And I think when we can not worry so much about the incident or the event, and we get to the point in the conversation about the impact, it is the most common place for us to have that conversation because it's relatable across all lines. We run a technology business. We have 35 employees, right? There's a lot of stress to make sure that we keep those employees employed through the pandemic and everything that comes with that. I can relate that to the ag industry as well. So I think at the end of the day, if we take the situation out of it and we look at it as us as an individual and put as much preparation into our mental health as we do crop planning and decision making, I think we're all going to be in a better place, and we're going to be in a better place to manage when those crises or those situations arise.
Amy, for you, Sheldon talked about practice and making it part of just like the power play. Are there things that people do or that I do that you say get them into trouble, habits that get them going the wrong direction, or conversely, habits that get them going in the right direction?
Absolutely. I think that there's a lot of short-term coping strategies that might help in the moment, but over time, if we only rely on those short-term coping strategies, they can become problems actually. So there's a few points about this. It's like having a beer or a glass of wine in the evening, not really a problem, but if that becomes your only coping strategy and there's not a place where you can talk about it or that kind of stuff, take it off the shelf and unpack it a little bit, then that builds. Same with like eating. There's science that says like emotional eating, there's actually a short-term feel-good thing that happens, but over time that becomes a negative pattern. And in the ag industry, we look at, there's this, you get bucked off a horse, you dust yourself off, you get back on. That's incredibly adaptive, right? Because we just keep going. And that is so good. It keeps us rolling. Even if depression or stress or things are telling us not to, we keep going. That is good. That is adaptive. But I don't think we were meant to ride alone. And that question you asked about 50 years ago, would there be a different response? There are a few things that have happened in as we evolve, I guess. So I'm just going to tell a little story. I had a baby 8 years ago, and I remember I was at home. I was the only one on the farm with this little baby struggling. And I called my mom one day and was like, Mom, I just can't do it. It's too hard. And she said, you know what, Amy, it never used to be like this, even when you were a baby. That, not that long ago, right? When you were a baby, it wasn't like this. There were more people at home. Not everybody or not so many people had to also work off the farm. And so neighbors would stop over. They would rock the baby while I had a shower. They would fold my laundry. They would make me coffee in my own home, fold my laundry, do my dishes. So this beautiful community. And we know this in our bones. We know the importance of relationship with neighbors, when you have to pull a calf, when you have to get a crop off real quick, when stuff comes up. We know this, but as we've moved away from it. So my late grandpa talked about the importance of family dances, not because of the party, but because the community would come together once a month, once a week, whatever that is. The community would come together. You'd be looking people in the eyes. You'd be, how are your kids doing? All that kind of stuff. So when things happened, people could show up. And we know this, but we have a few, of course, barriers right now.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean we can't still connect and still find those places. And I think too, the other thing I wanted to say about telling people, right? It's not like you have to tell your neighbor or tell the coffee group, when we could have coffee groups, tell the whole group what's happening for you. But even if you have a family doctor that you feel safe with, or you have somewhat of a relationship with, or you're like, he's not going to tell anybody, so I can tell him, tell somebody. And I think that's what you're talking about, Sheldon, just the importance of not carrying it on your own, while also practicing those strategies and those things that help you get through it. Yeah.
Sheldon, how do you handle, and it sounds dumb, but that's where I come to, what if I'm embarrassed? If to say the thing that I don't want to say the thing because I've been thinking about the thing and I just don't want to say it because it's embarrassing. How did you get through that?
Well, I think it's more than embarrassing. I think it's shameful. I think it's confusion, because we can't, most of the time I struggle with anyway, is trying to explain it in a way that somebody's going to be able to understand it, because I'm having a hard time processing it in my own head. And why am I like, God, I got to be weak if something like this is bothering me, or, I can't sleep, or, and I think it's about taking the risk. And I think, like what Amy said, we don't have to shout from the rooftops. This is not what we're saying, but I do think that, being able to practice these conversations. And I think, being able to, not have a conversation like this as being a white elephant in your home. I think as a group, our kids learn about mental health in school way more than we have as adults. They are way more knowledgeable about this stuff. They're way more open to have this conversation. And I think as adults, it's our we need to learn. We need to understand. We need to know what it is. And I think, what I've learned in life is that, did I have a lot of fear taking the step to start investing in ag and going down that road? Yeah, I did. Because you know what? Yeah, I grew up on a dairy farm. That was a long time ago. I've had a career and had a life that hasn't been in ag, but I've always had a passion to get in there. So I've had a lot of fear. But I think the more I learn about it, the more I invest my time and understand it and become confident in it, Dave, the better I am at being able to, understand when I am at risk, and to be able to just say, to my wife, hey, you know what? I don't know what's going on, but I'm, for some reason, I can't shut my head off at night, and I've had that conversation with my doctor, and we're able to address it. And again, I think it comes back to, your tell to somebody, or your reach out or your outreach to somebody doesn't have to be perfect. It's just like, you know what, I'm struggling and I can't shut my head off and I don't know what's going on. And, I need some help, and what I've also learned is that I can't save people, but what I can do is listen. And I've had to really learn how to listen. And I think that what I understand my role is to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to help you get to Amy. I'm going to help you get to the place where you can get the proper help that you need. And that's my part.
Amy, how hard is it to not want to Sheldon's point, if you're on the other side, someone's talking to me, especially if it's someone I care about, I'm going to want to fix them. Okay, whatever your problem is, let's deal with this in the next 5 minutes, we're done. I'm assuming that's not the correct response necessarily, but what's your advice for when someone comes to you with an issue, or if you're married to someone and you can tell they're not sleeping much or whatever it is?
Mm-hmm. And I get paid to help people through this kind of stuff, so I'm pretty good at it. But when it becomes someone that I'm really close with, or someone that I'm living life with, it gets so much harder to not to want to just fix it and move them through quickly. So just like Sheldon said, as much as you can bite your tongue and say, okay, what do you mean? Tell me more. What's happening? Okay. You're not supposed to be a mental health expert. You're not supposed to be. You're supposed to be a friend or a family member. And as much as you want them to be more okay, you might not be able to do that. And so just listening and those kind of things. If you notice somebody's struggling, you're not going to say it looks like you're depressed, because that's probably not going to help. Right. But you might say, I've noticed that, you're waking up later and later every day. I've noticed that, maybe it's hygiene, like you're not taking care of yourself the way you used to, or you're not as passionate about, spending time with the kids or grandkids or getting outside, like what's going on. So saying what you actually see, and then I'm worried about you, what's happening? And you have a relationship with this person. So if that conversation, like maybe sitting beside them in the bale truck or in the tractor is the best place to have that conversation, maybe after the kids go to bed or something like that. But slowing it down, looking them in the eye, or sometimes sitting beside them and just saying, this is what I see. I'm worried about you. What's going on? Yeah.
And I think it's a normal, like Amy, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's a normal mindset. And I have this mindset, and it's still with me today. And I've spent a ton of time, dealing with mental health, addiction, you name, whatever, issues. But it's about, I can power through it. I'm going to wake up one day and it's going to be better. And I've come to realize that that is not true. It doesn't get better until we take action around it. It doesn't just go away. It's not like, oh, if this just happens, or if this just happens, or if the prices just go up $1, or if this or if that. When you're in that spot, you have to take action around it. And this doesn't mean that, we have to go and, spend every day 4 hours a day working on our mental health. But I think it's finding things that work, and work with a professional to find things that'll work for you, that you can do on a daily basis. And I put it right in my calendar. Like I put things right in my calendar, because this is the way I look at, my wellness. If I don't make it my number one priority on a daily basis. The rest of everything else that is important to my life goes to the wayside. It doesn't work right. And I've had to get to that point. But a lot of times we put our emotional wellness on the side of our desk, and we only go into that folder when we're in a crisis. And I think what we've got to practice is building it into our calendar. And when you wake up, you build it into no different than if you're going to, jump in that tractor and, go feed the cows every day or whatever it is. I mean, it's got to be part of that daily routine, just a check-in. And that doesn't mean, 3-4 hours. That means, 10, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes of just focusing on getting yourself in that space.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, we could talk. We still haven't talked. We haven't got time to talk about Battle of the Blades. There's so much we could talk about, Sheldon. I know.
Hey,
that's okay. There's the next conversation. We'll do that. I'm going to bring John back in from ATB. You guys stay with us here because we have prizes to give away. But before I let John talk too much, Amy, what gives you hope? We talk this to other people. What makes you optimistic? What gives you hope?
So just simply put, the resiliency of the human spirit, hearing stories like Sheldon's. I get to hear stories like that every day, and it actually tears me up more to hear the stories of recovery, getting back on your feet and choosing to live life and doing the things. I just think I'm the luckiest person to hear some of these stories and see these people face to face.
Sheldon, we're going to get to hear from you, but I want to talk to Jonathan. Isn't this been something, John?
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Absolutely a great discussion today. And first and foremost, thanks to all of our customers and in particular to our customers that participated in the discussions with Scott Samoleski and bringing some of these points forward about what's on your mind. I think it's really important to all of us. And I just want to touch on a couple of key points here, Sheldon and Amy, that talked about this sense of, the concept of learning and practicing, not just in mental health, but learning and practicing, if you will, in life, I think is really important. And the stories and the storytelling is very important. And one thing I think too, that really kind of dawned on me, if you will, through this conversation today is, and Amy brought it up, that importance of community. And I think that's why we're all here and why, Scott, Bolton, and I of UFA are colleagues and have been for quite some time and have discussions every now and then in 4-H and Stuart at Olds College as well. I think coming together, if you will, to have these discussions as a sense of community and agriculture is really important to all of us here as speakers and panelists and whatnot today. But I think it's important for us as a community with all of you that are on the call and listening and listening in, whether you're customers or not. I think our industry colleagues, I think it's really important for us to continue to work together as an agriculture community, and certainly why we wanted to have to reach out and have this conversation today. So really appreciate everyone joining in today and coming and joining to listen, providing your input into the discussion topics today. And again, for everyone on the panel that participated with us today, really appreciate it very much. So thanks again. Thanks to everybody.
Well, I know there's some folks that are watching right now going, yeah, it's all fine and good. Mental health is very important. What about the prize? What about the prize? Who's getting the prize? Well, this is your lucky time. Team Cooey, we know Benny and Johnny there and Graham from Toolshed are putting together a little prize pack, going to come to your house. They say they're going to clean up. How much work is Johnny going to do? Really? Team Cooey? I don't know. However, we have the spinning wheel of joy to find out who our winner is. Every one of you that's on the call has been entered in that. All right, Rob, let's spin that wheel and see where we end up.
Well, Dave, looks like we have a winner. Angela Semeniuk wins the grand prize. Back to you, Dave.
The The grand prize. I like that because it's the only prize. Angela, congratulations. I saw Graham Rice look close there. Sorry, Graham. So close. You are going to, Team Cooey's going to come by, say hello, hopefully, as long as they're not at the Olympics, and you're going to get yourself 48 beers from Tool Shed Brewing. I want to say thanks for everybody for being part of this. And Sheldon, I want to give you the last word. As far as there's so many sponsors done so much. There's our panelists and Scott and everybody that did what they did. But it comes down to how you're feeling in your own head and your own heart. What gives you hope? What gives you optimism, Sheldon?
Well, that's a good question. I think what gives me hope is waking up every day and seeing my little guy, and he runs around the house, and he just keeps it simple. And I think for me, I can get caught up in a myriad of business dealings on a daily basis, and I think when I look at him, it just simplifies everything. And then I think if I can keep things in perspective, it's going to give me hope. And I just know that if I look at my life, if it represents anything to anybody, from where Sheldon was and to the holes that we were in, to where to the place that I'm at today, and things that we've been able to do, I hope that gives anybody hope that they can get out of it too, and that they can live the life that they want. Because I never ever thought that I could smile again, that I'd ever be able to enjoy, the simple things in life, and I do today. And I think that, to me, is what hope is. And just, we've got to learn from others. It's no different than me in the farming industry. I am learning from those that have been in this industry for a long time. That is, I love that. And, and I have had conversations with these people that have never talked about their well-being. What are you talking about? I'm like, well, I'm just here to listen, big fella. So that's what gives me hope.
Well, you're a good man. Thank you, Sheldon. And Amy, thank you so much for being part of this conversation. It's an important one, and you're very kind to be part of this. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, and thank you, ATB and UFA, for bringing mental health to the main agenda today.
Oh, I think I'll have just another quick sip of my coffee here. John, thanks again. And thanks, ATB, for hosting this, and all of you for putting on such a great program. I appreciate it, John.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks again, everyone. And appreciate you putting this on, Dave and Rob. Great work.
We're going to, the rest of our lives get to go. I'm going to, just for Sheldon today, I'm going to try my best to take care of mental health and realize it tomorrow and the next day and the next day. I still got to practice. You're a good man. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. And on Ag Day, thank you for the work you do. I'll be thinking of you all day. Be good.